In Romans chapter 1, verse 16, the Apostle Paul makes this astounding statement. He says, I am not ashamed of the gospel, for it's the power of God unto salvation, everyone who believes, to the Jew first and then to the Greek. And so we're talking about the good news, the gospel, the good news, and the one that embodies the good news is Jesus. And we're asserting that Jesus can meet the deepest needs of your life and my life. So today we want to talk about meeting the need of contentment, that Jesus can meet our need for contentment. Let me give you a couple quotes here. A Quaker offered property to anyone who considered himself contented. When a man came to claim the lot, he was asked, if you're contented, why did you want my lot? The good life exists only when we stop wanting a better one. The itch for things is a virus draining the soul of contentment. Listen to this. Contentment is not the state of your accounts, it's the state of your heart. Contentment, dear friends, is something that has to be learned. I love the story about the gentleman one day that was talking to his friend. He said, man, how you doing? Guy looked at me and said, well, I guess under the circumstances, I'm doing okay. And the fellow said, well, what are you doing under there? Think about how many of us live our lives under the circumstances. And so here are things that we might say. If only I could have my circumstances changed. If only I had a new wardrobe. If only I had a new car. If I only had a new husband or a new wife. If I only had different kids. If I could lose 25 pounds. If we only had a new preacher at our church. I love the story about the man who was very proud of his beautiful yard. It was, and the story goes, it was absolute perfection. But one year, a heavy crop of dandelions came in, and he couldn't figure out how to get rid of them. He tried everything he knew, and still they kept growing and destroying his pristine lawn. So finally, he wrote to the school agricultural center at a local university, telling them about all the things he'd tried and asking if they had any suggestions. In response, he received a very short reply, which read, we suggest that you learn how to love them. Well, some things in our lives, God will change. Some things he will remove. But sometimes his suggestion probably is, you know what? You're just going to have to learn to love them. And so the question then becomes, how do we become a person that's content? I love the passage in Philippians, chapter number 4. Paul, by the way, who wrote the book of Philippians, or the letter to the people in Philippians, was in prison. And this is what he says. He says, for I have learned how to be content with whatever I have. And I think I could add, or wherever I am. And so when you reflect on that for a moment, you'll see that Paul, he was in prison, but number one, his focus was not on prison. His focus, number two, was on a person. His focus was on the person of Jesus Christ. And so as a result of that, it was who he belonged to. And as a result of belonging to Christ, he was focused on what he should do where he was. And so in 1 Timothy chapter number 6, I think it's verse number 6, the Apostle Paul says this as he's talking to young Timothy, who's trying to get a foundation of faith built under him. And he says this, yet true godliness with contentment is in itself great wealth. So what does he mean by that? Well, let me conclude by saying this. What he's saying here is if you have a close relationship with Jesus Christ, and he is developing his life in you, you're developing and growing and maturing in your relationship with Jesus Christ. You're becoming more like Jesus, Romans 8:29. That basically means a consistent, authentic, real relationship with Jesus, plus contentment. What is that? That's an attitude of satisfaction and peace in your life. So if you got the growing relationship with the Lord, which is also going to help produce the contentment in your life that will equal great gain or great wealth. So let me ask you a question. How are you doing on godliness? Are you growing in your relationship with Christ day by day by loving him and showing you love him by being in his word and doing what it says with his help? Are you beginning to sense in your life that you're not under the circumstances, but that you're experiencing contentment, whatever the circumstances are? If that begins to become the formula that you begin to experience in your life, it's going to result in great gain or great wealth in your life. You think about that, and I pray that that will be a reality in you. Yes, Jesus meets our need for contentment.